thank you for bearing with us. We're taking advantage of this unique opportunity to be here. Dr. Robert Underwood is on the board of the American Folklife Center, and so we are meeting lots of needs and patting lots of puppies all at the same time, feeding lots of birds from the same seeds, however you want to talk about it. I'm Monica Mohindra. I'm the director of the Veterans History Project, and we're so grateful to have you here with us today to join in this incredible celebration. I'm here with Dr. Underwood on one side, the fabulous Dr. Underwood, and Nicole Saylor on the other side, the new director of the American Folklife Center. We are so pleased to host his esteemed self over here, Dr. Underwood, for this celebration of, and I'm going to work really hard on this pronunciation, and hopefully all of you will tell me where I've gone wrong. Bitiranu Gi Geran Vietnam, in their own words, in their own language. Do I get graded now? Does that work okay? Terrific. Thank you so much. We are so thrilled at this opportunity so that we could have these really important collections. I'm not going to say much more. I want the stars of the show to have the time. First, Nikki will share a few words, and then Dr. Underwood will share just a few words. And then we will have a ceremonial donation of the actual collections, which are so exciting. You got to see some of them with the real-time translation, transcription going across so that we could understand these words, all of us together. And I'll turn it over now to Nikki. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Dr. Underwood. So usually in D.C., when you get up at the podium, you have to call out the important people in the room, and I think we need to do that. But I also want to call out the baby in the room. Yeah. Because really, it does remind you of why this stuff matters, right? You want this to be preserved, you want this to live on, and you want your kids and your grandkids to know the story. So anyway, I want to just say a couple brief things. The interviews that are gathered as part of this deep collaboration with the American Folklife Center and the Veterans History Project serve to preserve Chamorro language at both the Library of Congress and the University of Hawaii. In this remarkable effort, including translations and transcriptions of first-person interviews with Native Chamorro speakers and Vietnam veterans, Dr. Underwood and his project team have made a significant increase in the library's extant collection of documentation in Guam. I think the oral histories mark a significant increase. Monica calculated 1,500% increase for VHP collections from Guam. So this is amazing for us to have such a harvest of wonderful materials. So this happens to be the second time that Dr. Underwood has had a hand in building the American Folklife Center collections. You'll have an opportunity to explore contributions from a 2000 effort called Community Roots and Community Legacies, and it was a national collecting effort when he was in Congress. So we want to express our gratitude to Dr. Underwood, who realized his vision to preserve these perspectives of Vietnam veterans in capturing the language of their heart and memory. So we have sincere gratitude to him and Veterans Advisor Bill Cundiff, Danny Santos, Chamorro linguist Teresa Flores, Kimberly Killing, and the executive, and to ensure that these voices, narratives, and perspectives are preserved, and particularly the veterans for their generous spirit in sharing about these personal impacts on their lives. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Underwood. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nikki. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And first, of course, I want to recognize everyone. I want to recognize former Congresswoman Bordallo, who's here with us, former Assistant Secretary Tony Babauta. I know there's representatives here from Sablan, Congressman Sablan, and of course from delegates and Congressman Nicolas's office as well. And so, also Karen Kenton, where is she? Is she still here? Oh, there she is from the National Endowment for the Humanities. So this project began as a request of the former chair of the Humanities and Council, and And I guess we sort of forgot about it until I saw him at one of these meetings that we had here when I was appointed to this board. And then I reminded him, and then on his way out, on his last day, his last act was to give us this grant. So here we are, and so we're very happy about that. And I want to say that there's so many people involved in this, and I want to acknowledge the ever faithful Guam Society of America for all their efforts, particularly Mike Blas, and I appreciate that. Also, Terry Smith, who was my student, and
Your favorite.
and when I was a teacher at George Washington, and her high school ROTC instructor is featured in that video, Juan Benavente. And of course, the Younger brothers, I won't say, Al Younger there and Ed, but Al is the only student here that I paddled.
He told us.
But it changed his life. He told me so. He told me so.
That's why he went into officership.
So that's always a good feeling to see people in various circumstances. But this is, and of course, I want to also acknowledge the presence of Sai Sanchez, noted veteran of Vietnam, and thank you so much for Maulika, utungan na Maulika, lo que suminat samolo. Masya, nos cuantos gunin na tauto sinya suminat samolo. Go, ibigay uno, lo, besa, ibigay talo otro. Lo besang anyo, istigay mas na magus, binina historia. The way that these men were picked was screened by Bill Cundiff and Danny Santos, both Vietnam veterans in a different lights. Neither were combat veterans. One was in the Air Force and the other was in a rear guard position. But the way that we screened these veterans and the stories they told are simply amazing. And there's 25 of them, and their names are listed out there. And the stories that they told are beyond imagination, and told in an offhanded way. You know, there's stories about courage. There's stories about bravery. There's stories about what they did afterwards. Some went to jail. One went to jail for murder after his experience in Vietnam. There are stories about drug addiction, stories about artistic renovation, stories, just a whole panoply of stories that came through in their statements, and just amazing stories. And just to tell you, two of them, Martin Manglonia and Juan Blas, were both deserving of the Medal of Honor, and they never got it. And they both retired as command sergeant majors in the Army. Never deterred them. But if you ask them why they didn't get the Medal of Honor, they'll tell you right away it was because of the racism, what they experienced. So they tell these men joined at the time the military. They didn't know what to call them. So he said one of them got classification. He was Malaysian. One was Malayan. One was Polynesian. One was Asian. And they didn't know what to call him. And of course, they were experiencing this at a very, very different level. And so what happened with them was, when you hear these stories, is that one of them, Juan Blas, they were in a 2-day battle. And he was calling in for resupplies. The helicopter came down, and he could hear the chatter. And one guy in the helicopter said, "Shoot him, he's a gook. Shoot him, he's a gook." And the other one said, "No, he's one of ours." And even in light of that experience, that guy, that command sergeant major, was the lead NCO at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier after that experience. because of the way he held himself and the dignity and the courage that he had. He was an enormous figure. And then he recounts his experiences as the head of that, how protesters came and spat upon his some of the soldiers that were guarding, and people climbing the trees, and he finally, the only time he ever shot his weapon in anger outside of Vietnam, he had to pull out his revolver and shoot in the air in order to get people out the trees. And yet through all that, I just talked to him the day before I got on the plane, and he's happy. He's happy with his service, he's content with his service, and it's just, it's a reflection about something much deeper, which is your values. Your values are put into practice in service and sanctified and made eternal by sacrifice. And all of these men did something along those lines. So it's a powerful story, very, very proud to be part of this. Same thing with Martin Manglonia. Martin Manglonia was another one, Command Sergeant Major, went through a series of similar experiences. And I was interviewing him in his home, and he had a picture of a North Vietnamese soldier, and I said, you know, Martin, isn't it like inappropriate to have a picture of you shoot someone and then you're not supposed to take a picture of him? He goes, yeah, but he was the tallest North Vietnamese soldier I've ever seen. He was 6'2". So, well, that's one. And you know, if you know Martin, he's only 5'7". So, you know, he must have looked like a really big guy. But Martin also asked him the story. I said, so you were out there and you were fighting out there for 3 days, constant. He charged bunkers. He did everything. He jumped in the tunnel. He did everything. And then he said when that North Vietnamese soldier tried to shoot him and the gun just went click, he said, then I knew that God was with me. I will never die. And he just went ahead and he did all that. And his presence in that experience was just, and in the way he explains it in a kind of an offhanded manner, was just amazing. So, you know, this in a way, I still trying to figure out how to help these two gentlemen before they move along. It's a great generation, and both Martin and Juan there were amazing soldiers. And I asked them, so in that battle, what did you think about? Did you think about your family? I said, I never thought about my family. I thought about my men, because they were my responsibility. And what I thought about was I wanted to avoid having to write a letter to their wives or to their mothers. And so that's how he framed it. He had one guy in his platoon. He said in his company there was one Chamorro guy that was hauled into the company. So he asked the company to give him that guy. His name was George Basha. And I made him his radio man. I made him my radio man. And I said, why'd you do that? He was a Chamorro. I had to protect him. So in the midst of all that, there's all of that. So it's just a series of amazing stories. I know many of you will look at the names out there and find some familiar things. So on behalf of, here we go. These are the thumb drives and the forms for each one of these gentlemen. And,